there are humongous ethical concerns that we really do have to consider. And in a large part, I think what that should mean is, maybe we don't deploy some of these AI systems into societal constructs.
Hey everyone, welcome to AI Trends with Aish. This is Aish Bala, your host. Join me in the series as I chat with industry experts, thought leaders, and professionals to gain insights on how AI is shaping the future of work. Whether you're a high schooler curious about AI in any industry, or a working professional looking to gain more knowledge, this series has something for you. In today's episode, we have the privilege of hosting an up-and-coming AI researcher. His passion and expertise lie at the intersection of meta-learning, reinforcement learning, and the evolutionary computation. Please join me in welcoming Dharna. Dharna is a Ph.D. student at the University of British Columbia, studying under the esteemed guidance of Dr. Clune. With a strong background in mathematics and a drive for knowledge, Aaron's research journey has taken him through fascinating projects and collaborations. During his master's program, Aaron conducted research at the Game Innovation Lab in New York University. His master's thesis centered around the concept of open-ended evolution and the development of the Pinsky system, which introduces creativity in games. Prior to his PhD, Aaron embarked on his academic journey in the New Jersey Institute of Technology and Fordham University, which focused on machine learning and reinforcement learning. Furthermore, prior to his MS, he also gained practical experience as a machine learning engineer intern at Instrumental Inc. With a passion for mathematics and computer science, Aaron's journey has been filled with exciting opportunities and valuable experiences. Without further ado, Dharna, thank you for joining me and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
It's looking forward to our chat.
Me too. Okay, great. So we can just get straight into the questions. My first question for you is, could you tell us a bit about your journey from high school that led up to your current research and what you do today?
Yeah. So back starting in high school. Okay. So in high school, I had a math teacher who was really important to me. She was just really great, really nice, and really helped foster a lot of my interest in the subject. Shout out to Miss Phelps, although I doubt she'll ever listen to this. But it's possible. I really liked the subject. I remember learning calculus back, like the first introductory levels of calculus back in high school, and thinking, oh wow, this is really cool. This is really pretty. I think I want to learn more about this. And so when I went off to college, I went to Fordham University, which is a Jesuit school in New York City. But as part of being a Jesuit school, you get almost like a liberal arts style education without it being a liberal arts school. You have to do classes in all sorts of different subjects, from various humanities to sciences to recreational things as well. And so while I was there, I ended up doing a major in mathematics, which really helped shape a lot of who I am today as both a researcher and a person. It really sort of teaches you, it's a subject that teaches you how to think. Partway through my undergraduate, near the end of it actually, so in my third year, I decided pretty much on a whim I was curious how computers work. And so I took a computer science class and I was like, ooh, this seems fun. And so I started moving a little bit more in that direction as well. And I continued that path I ended up doing a major and a minor in computer science. So a major in math and a minor in computer science. But all of that sort of led to a capstone for me where during my last semester of my undergraduate, I took a graduate level AI class. And this was a class that really taught a lot of old school versions of AI. So a lot of focus on how do you search for answers? How do you put problems into forms that we can use solvers to try and solve using some mathematical techniques? And I really, that's where I was introduced to the concept of machine learning, and I just really fell in love with it. It used all of the things I'd been learning about in mathematics classes in ways I never could have imagined.
Great. Yeah.
And so I was just like, wow, I need to learn more about this.
Mhm.
But it was right at the end of my undergraduate, so I was a little bit stuck on what to do. So I took the next year. I worked at my old high school as a substitute teacher, but at the same time, was taking some classes on machine learning. And that was really nice to sort of have that flexibility to do both those things at once.
Yeah.
After I finished that year of substitute teaching, I was really feeling the need to go work in the computer science industry. And so I moved back to New York City and was working for a year between a couple of different startups. And that's where I interned at Instrumental as a machine learning engineer. And I was just like, yeah, this is really cool. We were using machine learning to do anomaly detection on assembly lines. So as a part goes through assembly in a manufacturing line, you can think of it almost like here's an extra person, but it was a computer. You put the part in under the computer, it takes a picture, and then from that picture, it tries to say, hey, is there something wrong with the way this part has been assembled so far? And if so, flag it to say send it back into the line for fixing, or just say like, hey, this one's screwed up, let's not ship it so that it doesn't break later while someone's using it after they've bought the product. And so I got to see some more like usages of AI techniques and tools in that regard. And I was just like, this is so cool. I really want to learn more about it in a structured setting. So then I went back to Fordham actually and got my master's, because around that time I had come across a research paper from a researcher in the UK where they were using AI techniques to explore player modeling in games. So imagine you have like a really big online game. When you play the game collects data about you, how you play it, how long you take to complete this thing, any habits you might have while playing the game. And it saves all that information to build up a profile about you. And some scientists in the UK were sort of trying to pull that data and do what's called clustering different types of players. So if you have a big player base of players playing a game, like Fortnite, for instance, you have a bunch of data about how they play the game. Are they just like running around shooting guns all the time? Are they going and finding a bunch of cars? Are they just building lots of things? And so if you have all that data, you can give that data to certain types of machine learning algorithms that try to determine what are the archetypal types of players in this game. And so I was just like, that's so cool. It combines lots of different things I really like. It has a bunch of math, it has a bunch of computer science, it has a bunch of games. And I was like, this is super cool. And it's science. I was like, how can I not go learn more about this? So I went back to my master's, and during my master's, I found the Game Innovation Lab at NYU, run by Dr. Julian Tegelius. And they do a lot of this work, as well as a lot of work on trying to make, they do a lot of different things. And so I reached out to Julian and I was like, hey, I'm super interested in this field. I'm just like, an hour north of you up in the Bronx. could I come to the lab and meet you guys and do some work out of there? And he was super kind and receptive and was like, absolutely, come do it. Come work with us. So I ended up doing my master's research out of Julian's lab and really was loving it. It was a great time. After my master's, I actually went and started my PhD locally in the New York area at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Unfortunately, for various reasons, that just didn't work out. So I put in transfer applications during my second year of my PhD and got into Jeff's lab at the University of British Columbia. And so I couldn't pass up that opportunity. So I transferred to the University of British Columbia, where I am now working and having restarted my PhD.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of people find their hobbies and what they want to do at high school. So it's really cool that you recognize that AI was going to be a fast developing topic, and that you should furthermore research into it. So it's cool that you started early.
Well, back in high school, I was just like, math is cool.
Yeah.
And I just so happened that, I really did enjoy that. And although it is a very hard subject, it just is.
Of course.
And it just so happened that, the area of computer science that intersects very, very heavily with math, lots of them do. Computer science used to be a subdiscipline of math back before it grew into its own thing. But one of the modern fields in computer science that really pulls a lot from math is machine learning. And so I saw that, and then I was like, ooh, that combines all these things I really like. And then I threw some games in there, and I was just like, every time sort of taking something I like and throwing it in the mix. And somehow there's a community that does it. So
it's also really cool that you used Fortnite as an analogy, because a lot of people, especially newer generations, use Fortnite, and it's a really important and popular game. So my next question is, what advice would you give to a high school student who is interested in pursuing a research career in general, and also specifically in AI?
Yeah. So if you're interested in pursuing a research career, one of the things I skipped over was during my master's, I actually spent some time working in a computational chemistry lab, doing the computation side of it. And so when I was working there, the scientist who ran that lab, his name is Dr. Joshua Schreier, a couple times a year would actually bring in high schoolers into the lab to do some work for us. And that was a really great opportunity for them and for us to sort of teach them as well. So my initial thought here would be like, if a high schooler is interested in a research career, you almost certainly live near some university, and that university will have labs. And so if you go to the people running these labs and you're just like, hey, I'm a high schooler, I'd be really interested in learning more about your field. Oftentimes, that scientist is going to be really happy just to, have someone interested in what they do, and will often be very happy to sort of bring someone in for a little bit, show them, hey, here's generally what we do. And, it's certainly that a high schooler might not understand all of the things, but there are some things that could be explained in ways that make sense to their current level of education. And if not, and furthermore, there are certainly, at least in the chemistry case that I know most well in this regard, like there are things that high schoolers could do and have done. So there are ways to start thinking about research at a young age. And most of it is just sort of going to some of the people nearby who are experts in the thing and being like, hey, I'm interested in learning more. Can you help me with that? And, the worst thing that they can say is, hey, sorry, we don't really have something for you at the moment, but you're not in any worse position than you were. And you're in a better position having, gotten your name out there at least a little bit. And if that scientist then later has something, they could reach back out to you. Specifically regarding AI research, Um, I how could so if a high schooler wants to get into AI research, one thing that you will need is to sort of start developing some knowledge about how to code. Um, that's just sort of the fundamental building block upon which this field rests. Um, Once you know that, then sort of you can follow that same playbook that I mentioned and that I've seen it work in other fields as well. It might be slightly harder just because AI is such a hot field, but I have seen high schoolers work on and publish scientific research in AI. The person who I can most immediately think of, his name is Kevin Franz. And back when he was in high school, he did an internship at OpenAI and published a paper. So, and he's actually about to be back in the Bay Area because he's about to start his PhD at the University of California, Berkeley.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really good advice because I know it can be like intimidating to go to a place that you don't know and try to learn some AI that's fastly evolving. But it's good to know from an expert that it's okay to make uh, like those big decisions and it's okay to get rejected as well, as long as you're making that effort.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the things that you don't often read about in people's life stories or even just in like that small bio you gave about me, right? Is all the things that I applied to that I never got, right? Like I've applied to hundreds of jobs before I got that machine learning internship and instrumental. I applied to two different rounds of PhD programs, and because my first one just didn't work out for me, and both times I I think I got rejected from ever but two options. So
Yeah.
like this is sort of unfortunately the way the game works.
Yeah.
But you're never worse off from having tried. You might be out a few extra dollars, um, but I mean, I don't know a parent that wouldn't be happy to be out that money to give their child a chance at learning some new things.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that insight. Okay, my next question is how would you explain meta learning and reinforcement learning to a high schooler?
So I'll start with reinforcement learning. That one's a little bit easier to wrap your head around.
Okay.
So reinforcement learning is about learning from trial and error. So do you have any pets?
No, I used to have fish, but they died.
Okay.
Yeah, sadly.
Um, so imagine that you did have a dog
Yeah.
and you wanted to train the dog to do something. How would you go about that as a person, right? You would figure out what you want the dog to be able to do. For example, you want the dog to lift up her paw so that she can shake. So you've picked the task at hand. You then go to your dog and you sort of say, all right, now you sort of put out your hand and you say, all right, shake my hand. And then the dog will either shake your hand or it won't shake your hand. And when it does shake your hand, maybe you give the dog a treat so that it sort of slowly gets to learn that, whenever you say shake and put your hand out, the appropriate response is for the dog to lift up her paw and put it in your hand. And then all the times that the dog didn't do that, they didn't get that treat. So you practice this skill many, many times, every time sort of following this basic procedure. And that's sort of the basic idea of reinforcement learning. Now, you'll note that this type of rewarding and punishing actually has some really strong parallels to psychology. And that's because it really does. A lot of reinforcement learning in particular is a field that draws inspiration from many, many different fields, from psychology and mathematics to economics even. That's the sort of basic idea of reinforcement learning. You want the thing you're trying to teach to have chances to interact with what you're trying to teach it, where it gets to make decisions during that process. And every time it makes the decision you want it to make, you provide a positive reward. And if it makes decisions you don't want it to make, either you give it zero reward or you give it like a small negative reward. So like if whenever you said shake, your dog goes and like jumps into the mud and then goes and jumps onto your bed, you might yell at your dog a little bit, and that would be a bad reward. So that's sort of the simple version of reinforcement learning. Meta learning is a little bit more complicated. So meta learning also goes by another name. It's called learning to learn, which, sounds kind of meta.
Yeah.
So learning to learn is going to be a little bit similar to reinforcement learning in some ways. So we have run like experiments on monkeys and things like that, and other animals, not things, where say we have two balls of different colors and two cups, and one ball and two cups. Yeah, that's the right way to do it. So in front of the monkey, we put the ball and the two cups on the ball, one of them on the ball, one of them off the ball. And let's say that these cups are different colors. One is red, one is blue. Now, the monkey will get to sort of go over there and choose one of these cups that it thinks the ball is under. So let's say it chooses the red cup. Then we lift up the red cup and there's no ball under there. Then we restart the experiment, where we then go and we put the cup and the balls in front of the monkey again. And now it gets to choose again, which one will the ball be under? And it chooses the red one again. And then we show it's still not under there. And then we repeat this a third time and a fourth time and a fifth time. And the goal here is for the monkey to, from these very few trials, to figure out some rule that governs all of the trials. For in this case, the ball is always under the blue cup, is the rule we're trying to teach it. And so after it finishes experimenting with this and learning this rule, given a few examples, we then change the situation slightly. So now, instead of putting a ball and two cups in front of the monkey, we put a ball, but we put it under two different crates. But these crates are still color-coded, red and blue. Now, if the monkey learned the rule that we wanted it to learn, that the ball is under the blue thing, then even in this new scenario it had never seen before, it would pick up, ooh, one of these things is blue. Let's lift up that one and find the ball underneath it. So meta-learning is about showing a few examples of some task or rule, and then trying to get the agent to learn that fundamental rule that can be abstracted and brought to a new scenario.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that's really good breaking down of these two highly technological terms, I guess. So thank you for breaking that down for us. Great. Okay, so my next question is, given the advancements in AI, what types of industry skills do you think will still be relevant, and what skills would be handed over to machines?
Oh boy, you put me on the spot here.
It's a hard one.
It is a hard one. So, what types of things might we give to AI? So, there's it's not an idiom, It's not a metaphor. Whatever. There's a law, functionally, I guess is what we'll call it, called Moravec's paradox. And what Moravec's paradox says is that things that are really hard for people are actually really easy for machines, and things that are really easy for people are really hard for machines, which is kind of a weird thing to think about. But let's sort of try to make that idea concrete for a second. What is something that's really easy for us as people to do? I would say one of the most fundamental things we do that, we have a bit of a learning curve when we're very young, but after that, it's pretty easy, is walking, right? Mm-hmm. You don't think about walking. You just think, oh, I'm going to go to the fridge. And then you lift yourself, you push out your tray, you walk to the fridge, you reach with your hand, you open the fridge, you find what snack you're looking for, and then you close it and come and sit back down. Mm-hmm. Right? Think about all the complicated things that had to go into you doing that. Your muscles had to contract in the exact right way for you to stand up, then all the exact right ways to propel you forward to walk without losing your balance, then to reach forward, grasp the fridge handle, pull on it with an opposing force, opening it up, all while not losing your balance, look inside, grab a snack, close the door, walk back. Like, there's so many complicated things that we as people just don't even think about. We do all these things just with our brain in the background. Mm-hmm. Those are things that are going to be really hard for AI systems and robotics to do, because they don't have that same level of abstraction and control that we do. Typically, when you have AI systems and robotics that are doing things like walking, every joint has a motor. And so you issue electricity and like twisting commands to each motor, torque usually. Mm-hmm. And then there's other types of motors that have other types of forces that you can have them exert on the machine. Each of those commands are incredibly low level, right? You're sending electrical impulses, really. Well, I don't know if that's entirely true. I'm not a roboticist. But like you're issuing torque commands usually to all of these systems. Getting all those things to behave properly, to emulate the process of like us and our muscles contracting and standing up, that's just it's really, 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 really hard. Yeah. So that would be one example of a type of industry that we're not going to be handing over to AI anytime soon, in my opinion. And really sort of, I think you can mostly expand that out to similar, you can take that thing and extrapolate it to other areas. Things that are really easy for us, things we don't even think about, are things that AI is going to really struggle with. But things that we do spend a lot of time thinking about and documenting, like writing, right? We spend a lot of time when you're writing, like thinking through, oh, is this the right word to put here? Is this the right phrase? Are my commas correct? And we have many, 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 many terabytes of writing for the machines to sort of puzzle over and learn from. And so it is surprising that we've gotten them to work so well, but it's also not that surprising, right? Because we've shown them, the entire history of human knowledge of writing. Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing it learned something good from it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that makes sense. It is a concern for some people because AI is evolving at a very fast pace, so it's hard to see which careers are potentially getting taken over, I guess, by AI and what industries could potentially stay. So, yeah, it's good to know your thoughts about that topic. Okay, great. So, my next question is as an AI researcher, and like you said before, you were a substitute teacher, how did you see technology change the way students learn and interact with each other in classrooms?
Um, so I mean, it's absolutely changing the way students learn, right? Like, tell me you haven't been tempted on your essay prompt to go and see what ChatGPT will give you.
Yeah, definitely. It is a battle between my self-conscious, but
Oh
yeah.
yeah, me too, even. Um, and so like it is definitely completely changing the way students learn. But I can even go a little bit older than that, right? Um, we've had YouTube since like the late 2000s, early 2010s. And the way that YouTube, one of the ways that YouTube works under the hood is like based on what videos you watch, it will recommend new videos to you.
Yeah.
That recommendation system is based on AI research as well. And so that is also one way that, changes the way that students learn, right? If I go and I watch a crash course video on, uh, what has Crash Course done recently? A lot.
Yeah.
On some scientific topic here, right? Then uh, Google's or YouTube's recommendation algorithm will say, Ash watched that video and watched the whole thing. So, maybe she wants more like that. And so then it can take that into account and it can recommend to you other similar videos about that same topic. And maybe at first it's kind of giving you stuff all over the place. Like let's say you're watching a video about some part of artificial intelligence, and it gives you a mixture of simple explainer videos along with like high level, difficult to comprehend research talks, right? But the more that you say go to look for some of these explainer videos, the more it'll say, I see. So Ash is at about this level of competency and has been watching these types of videos. Let's find what else is related to that. I mean, that definitely changes the way that students learn, right? That opens up so many doors of topics that a person might never have thought about before. And now they're learning about in ways which technology has given to you. And all that is based on these ideas called recommendation engines, which are powered in large part these days by AI systems.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's also important to uh, point out that technology is a really significant part of people's lives, and it's important that younger generations especially get taught about it, because I think it can also be detrimental if you don't know how to use it, because like you mentioned, chat gpt is a like people do it sometimes to like do their homeworks, but I think that it's more important to use your own brain to solve the problems and not just use chat gpt. So yeah, I think it's
Yeah, and I mean, like, I can even give you another example of that, right?
yeah.
So I just finished my first year of my PhD, and in one of my PhD classes, I was working on one of the problem sets, and I was just so stuck. I read the problem 3-4 times, and I really had no clue what to do here.
Yeah.
I had no clue how to approach this problem. I did actually go to ChatGPT and I was like, "Hey, here's this homework problem." Um, it did give me an answer. That answer was wrong, by the way,
Yeah.
but it gave me an answer. But more importantly than that, it gave me sort of, here are the steps that this model had extrapolated from having read all of the internet about how to approach these types of problems, and that gave me a starting point. And from that starting point, I was like, oh, I see. I was missing the jump from concept one to concept two, But once I got to concept two, then from there I could work out the math that I needed to do to answer the question.
Mhm.
And so when I did that, right, I then found, oh, hey, ChatGPT's answer was incorrect, but it had done something really important for me. Yes, it had given me an answer, but it had shown me how to answer this type of question. And then I had used that information myself and then reworked the answers and found that ChatGPT was wrong,
Mhm.
right? But it taught me how to do this type of problem that I did not know how to do. And that's really cool.
That is really cool. And especially even if it gives you the wrong answer, it still gives you the steps so you can see, you can double check it at least to see if it's correct or not. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. My last question, and this is just a little fun question, and it's: is a societal concern about an AI apocalypse just nearly like hype for movies, or is it a genuine concern?
Okay. So you asked about AI apocalypse.
Yes.
And in my opinion, this is excessive. The concern is being exaggerated. However, that is not to say that there isn't real concern about, deploying AI systems into society. Like there are some major issues that can occur here if we're not one very careful about how we do it. If we don't also make sure and do whatever we can to mitigate issues like bias in these systems, um, but also making sure that we don't put these types of systems into sort of treat them as black box answers, right? We've seen throughout the years about ways that people can do harm with those types of, here's a system that'll give me an answer about this thing, and let's just trust that. Um, a really, really clear example was back during the 1960s. Let me just check this real quick. Oh, started way earlier. So back in the 30s, it looks like is what Google is showing
Oh,
me.
wow.
The government was doing a process called redlining, where they would approve some types of loans for some people and disapprove other types of loans for other people, really being blatantly terribly racist. But they would say, oh no, it's because this person lives in a bad part of city and therefore we don't trust that their loans will be able to get repaid, and so we won't give them out. And that was like an example of people using information to make some of these types of validations or invalidations of people. And it's a really just terrible thing that we've still had problems with today even.
Yes, of course.
And we have examples of things like that can happen now with AI systems. For example, I think this was Amazon had written a machine learning method to screen resumes, and they had trained it on all the people that worked at Amazon. So, at face value, that might make sense, right? Amazon hires good people. We want the AI system to flag good people. So let's train it to look at the people that we've already hired, and then it will hire more people like those we've hired. Well, surely you can see the issue there.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
It's going to throw out many women and people of color just entirely.
Mhm.
And this system got deployed in Amazon and helped screen probably hundreds of thousands of resumes before it got caught that, oh, hey, maybe we're discriminating a little bit here.
Yeah, definitely.
So like there are humongous ethical concerns that we really do have to consider. And in a large part, I think what that should mean is, maybe we don't deploy some of these AI systems into societal constructs. Yeah. So to answer your question, apocalypse, I think, is a little bit exaggerated, but I think there are real issues that we do have to address. And how to address them is going to be really hard. It's going to take a lot of people thinking about this a lot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, especially since a lot of people look at movies and they think, oh, this is going to be the norm one day. But I think it's also important to further research AI and see its capabilities and what it is, its potential and what it can do. And I think it's important that you point out that I don't think there can be an apocalypse sort of way, or like that exaggerated.
I mean, there are very smart people who do think that could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there is also that concern, but it is inevitably important to learn more about AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you so much for your thoughts and comments that were very insightful. But that brings us to the conclusion of the show. So thank you, Erin, for joining me today. But before we leave, do you have any final thoughts for the audience or any extra advice for future AI researchers?
Yeah. So there's lots of different paths into it. Like if you want to get into AI, there's lots of different paths that will get you there. Mine went through mathematics, and I do think that, it was really good for me to do it that way. I learned a lot, but it's not the only one. I know quite a few people who have, started things like psychology, who now have gotten into AI, and those are really valuable perspectives to have. So everyone's path is going to be different. Yours, who knows what it will be, but if you pick a goal and work towards it, eventually you will get there. Or, maybe you end up somewhere different but equally interesting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of AI Trends with Ash. Have a great day. Bye.
You too.